In this video, I'm gonna reveal the number one reason you keep fucking up your relationships. This one thing is making her lose all respect for you. And once she loses respect for you, the relationship is over. What is that one thing that's holding you back, both in your relationships and probably many other areas in life? Low self-esteem. You might be thinking, oh no, Remy, my self-esteem is great. But let me tell you something, there's a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. Self-confidence is simply the belief that you can accomplish what you put your mind to, right? It's the internal belief that you are capable of achieving great things, right? But self-esteem is different. Self-esteem and having good self-esteem is being okay with yourself, even if you don't achieve great things, or even if you don't reach your goals. Now, here's the problem. If you're ambitious, if you're an overachiever like me, if you have big goals and you want to accomplish things, and maybe you already have accomplished pretty impressive things in the past, but you still don't love yourself, right? You're still constantly dissatisfied with yourself. This is how I was. This is how I felt. When I was late high school, early college, I had everything going for me. It's externally, right? I had the looks, I had the grades, I had the physique, I had the charisma, I had everything, right? But then I still felt every single day like I didn't do enough. Like I'm not heading in the right direction, like I'm lost, like I'm wasting my time. Even though I was in a much better place than I was when I was, a short, scrawny, feminine looking kid when I was 13, I still felt like that at 19 years old, even though I was in a completely different situation. Now, you might be in the same boat, right? You might have accomplished many things. You might have big goals. You might be a bit of an overachiever. You might just have accomplished pretty impressive things in the past, but you still feel dissatisfied with yourself and you don't feel content. This is an underlying issue of low self-esteem. Now, here's the problem, is that this low self-esteem absolutely ruins your relationships. So here is a list of the following symptoms that you can use to help see if you actually have low self-esteem. You rely on external validation to feel good about yourself. You criticize yourself all of the time. You are overly fearful of failure and you're a perfectionist. You constantly find yourself feeling drastic mood swings. Like one second you're feeling good about yourself, the next you just feel like shit. And then, of course, being a people pleaser, right? Being afraid that people won't like you, or being, only caring about what other people think and being overly obsessed with that. Well, how does low self-esteem actually ruin relationships? Well, first of all, it makes you needy. Being needy is the easiest way to show whatever girl you're dating or whatever girl you're trying to date that you need her to feel good about you, or you need her in your life, or you need her to love you, to constantly be responding to you for you to feel good. This is the quickest way to push her away. If you're constantly double or triple texting her when she doesn't respond, or hitting her up all the time and just never leaving her alone and always trying to see what she's doing, bro, this is obviously going to show her that you need her rather than just yourself. And listen, as a man, the second you reveal that you need a woman more than she needs you is the second she's gonna lose all respect for you, and the second your relationship is going to start to end. As a man, you should be able to express and display to your girlfriend that with or without her, you're going to be okay. The second way that low self-esteem actually ruins relationships is that it makes you dependent on her. Again, if you have low self-esteem, you're going to feel less complete without her, and that's a problem. You should be completely whole and fine with just being by yourself, not having her in your life. If you are dependent on her feeling good about you, or her just being your girlfriend in general to feel good about yourself, that is a very vulnerable and bad position to be in. And again, this is unattractive to women. This is biologically programmed into a woman's mind to weed out men who are dependent on them. And the third way that it ruins relationships and makes her lose attraction for you and respect is that it makes you less dominant. Now look, if you're a man, you understand that a relationship has two polar opposites. You have the masculine figure and the feminine figure. I'm hoping that as a man, you're going to take that masculine role, right? And as a masculine role, you need to be able to dominate, you need to be able to lead, you need to be able to protect, you need to be able to provide. These are all things that, again, are biologically wired and are taught to us from evolutionary psychology. So this is not some, magic trick. This is not some crazy concept. This is something that is just, it's human nature. And look, when you have low self-esteem, you are basically controlled by your girlfriend, like how she responds. You are walking on eggshells to make sure you don't say the wrong thing to piss her off. You're constantly letting her get away with bullshit, or, she cheats on you and you go back to her. Like, this is just the easiest way to make a woman absolutely start to resent you, frankly, because she's just gonna lose all respect for you. Okay, So that's the way that low self-esteem actually ruins relationships. But let's get into the practical advice on how do you actually improve self-esteem, right? If you have low self-esteem right now, how do you get to a point where you have high self-esteem? To the point where you actually love yourself, to the point where you don't need somebody else in your life to feel whole. This is an extremely important step that is necessary for you to unlock your fullest potential and live the best life possible, right? So let's get into it. So the first step in actually gaining self-esteem, going from low to high self-esteem, is rewiring your brain to be your own coach. So first of all, you need to completely scrap the self-criticism and negative self-talk that goes on in your head. If you're anything like me, you probably have a tendency to criticize yourself when you fail or just put yourself down in general. This is a classic sign of having low self-esteem, and it's honestly a pervasive symptom of perfectionism and in overachieving individuals. But how do you actually rewire this pattern? How do you stop criticizing yourself? How do you start loving yourself and speaking to yourself kindly, right? And having self-compassion? Well, this will require intentional effort, right? This is not something that is just going to happen over time. This is going to take effort. And let me tell you, if you put in the effort to actually raise your self-esteem, if you put in the effort to rewire your thoughts and your brain and the way you speak to yourself, your entire life will change. And I'm not joking when I say this. I was completely consumed by perfectionism and self-criticism and negative self-talk. Completely consumed. It led to absolutely horrible mental health. It even started to degrade my physical health because of the stress that I would put myself under. And the second that I realized this concept, when I was learning and thinking and researching on how to change my thoughts when I left for the hospital during my first term of my freshman year of university, my entire relationship with myself has changed. And it's been enlightening. It really has. It's been freeing. So the easiest way to actually rewire your internal narrative is the dysfunctional thought log. Now, I preach about the dysfunctional thought log a lot on this channel, but I think it was genuinely one of those exercises that you really don't think is going to help. But not only do you feel immediate relief after you actually reframe those automatic negative thoughts into rational responses, but you also over time start to catch when you call yourself a bitch. You start to catch that negative self-talk and you start to reframe it in the moment. And so eventually what'll happen is that you no longer have this immediate automatic negative thought. Instead, those automatic thoughts are actually helpful. They're actually motivating. They're actually kind, right? And you might think that you need to call yourself a bitch to get yourself motivated, but let me tell you this, I thought the same thing. It just led me down a road where I had horrible mental health and then eventually horrible physical health. And I guarantee you're not going to accomplish more if you call yourself a bitch all the time than if you are actually kind to yourself and motivate yourself. So trust me, this switch is extremely necessary. Okay, another way to rewire a negative internal narrative is by practicing gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most amazing things, right? A lot of time, again, if you're ambitious, if you're an overachiever, if you're trying to be rich, if you're trying to be fit, if you're trying to do all of these things and accomplish them all at the same time, it can get really difficult to actually be grateful for what we have in the present, what we've already accomplished, and what we have now that we take for granted and we're not always going to have in the future. And it really brings perspective to your life. And I think that it's incredibly important for this process of rewiring your internal narrative and fixing your mindset, right? From always pursuing, from always chasing, to being able to be in the present and be grateful for what you already have. Okay, and finally, the most important step when it comes to practically rewiring your thought patterns is practicing self-compassion. Now, trust me, I understand that it sounds like some bullshit that came out of some body positivity infographic, right? But this concept alone may have completely changed my life, and I think it will change yours too, okay? So self-compassion is essentially whenever you're going through a tough time, whenever you fail, whenever you're experiencing negative emotion, instead of beating yourself up about experiencing that negative emotion, you're actually kind to yourself. You speak to yourself inside of your head as if you're speaking to a friend, as if you're speaking to a sibling. If your sibling is experiencing a lot of emotional pain and is suffering, are you gonna sit there and call them a bitch, right? Absolutely not. You're gonna be kind, you're gonna be soft, you're gonna be gentle. And as a man, this might seem difficult and sort of contrary to what we should be doing, but that's just because you've been fed a lie by the red pill and manosphere community. They just think that, by calling yourself a bitch all the time and fighting your demons or whatever, that you're going to feel good about yourself, you're going to accomplish great things. It's just absolutely not true. You need to speak to yourself as your own mentor, as your own coach, as your own sibling, as your own parent, right? Stop speaking to yourself as if you're your own worst enemy. So a practical example of this is, for example, let's say you missed the gym one day because of some, you had to work late, right? And you didn't go to the gym. Rather than beating yourself up for it, you need to think of what your mom would tell you, right? If you went to her and told her that you're feeling really bad about yourself because you missed one gym session, what is she gonna tell you, right? And think of it when she's in her kindest, most gentle state, when she's being, a mom, right? And so that's how you should be treating yourself. And so look, if you actually apply these 3 things, if you start practicing the daily dysfunctional thought log, if you start practicing gratitude every day, either by journaling or just taking time and during your mindfulness breaks to just be grateful for what you have, and you are practicing self-compassion and catching yourself when you're beating yourself up and speaking to yourself kindly and gently, your relationship with yourself will completely change. Your motivation will go up. Your overall happiness and joy in life will increase. And your productivity and the amount of shit that you get done will also increase. Okay, so how do these 3 practical things help you when it comes to relationships, right? Because that's essentially what this video is about. Well, if you are practicing the daily dysfunctional thought log, if you're practicing gratitude, if you're starting to practice self-compassion, you will realize that your relationship with yourself will change drastically. Now, this is what we want. We want to be able to change our relationship with ourselves to the point where we feel whole by ourselves without needing somebody else to make us feel happy, without needing somebody else to make us feel fulfilled or good about ourselves, right? And so you change your relationship with yourself and you fix your external relationships. Because once you can love yourself and be content with just yourself and be willing to walk away when she misbehaves or does something that betrays you, be willing to walk away if she's consistently being a bad person to you, right? You need to be willing to walk away as a man. Because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to walk away, the woman will realize and she will lose respect for you and she will lose attraction. And eventually she'll realize that you need her more than she needs you. And the second that happens, the relationship's over. So you need to be able to be content by yourself. And these 3 things will make it that much easier. And I guarantee you that if you practice these consistently, that your relationship with yourself will improve and you will be less needy, you will be less dependent on her, and you'll be more dominant and more masculine, and you will actually regain your masculinity, right? And be more attractive at the end of the day. So look guys, this is a very important video. I really hope that you take some of the actionable advice and implement it into your lives if you have low self-esteem, if you're in a relationship. But anyway guys, thank you for watching. Peace out.